Now, hello. Today is very, very important that we look at the topic AFRICOM invited to Africa. In other words, the USAfricom, United States of America AFRICOM, invited to Africa. There are so many noise now going on across Africa and in the diaspora about AFRICOM in Africa. Most of the concern is mainly about hostility to foreign forces on the land of Africa who are called invaders. The Americans, blacks and the whites, who constitute the USAfricom, are defending their position that they are not imposing themselves on Africa, but are invited by some of the African countries' governments. The big question is it true that the Americans are being invited as forces in Africa? The answer is yes. Then who are these African countries' leaders inviting people into Africa while the noise at the grassroots level is opposing the move? In addition to Ghana, Liberia and Djibouti government, about 25 countries out of the 53 states of the African Union have already made this formal commitment as invitation to the United States AFRICOM, that is government, to send forces into Africa. Again, in accordance to the AU representative, General Jatodi Jantamate, the AU under the chairmanship of Dr. Jempeng, who is the chairman of the African Union Commission, has also committed the need for the African Command, AFRICOM, to come, USAfricom, to come into Africa. Then, the Union against the citizen of the Union. So now we have the opinion of the people different from the opinion of the leaders, and now the opinion or the needs of the African Union. So on one side, the African Union, and on another side, the people. Now, what are the motives behind the member state leaders of the AU inviting the US Army into Africa? What could be the motive? The African leaders are getting aware that their oppressive regime on the people is insensitive rule are becoming unbearable to the people. And the coups and popular uprising is becoming now inevitable across the African countries. Our AU member state leaders are now not delivering, and all we have are a recipe to coup and social uprising. So, as was the case of the European smaller states when they were at our stage of development, today that was what is characterizing by uprising and government overthrow across Africa. So the US Army, that is the AFRICOM, is in place to make sure that when governments of the African member states are now overthrown, it will be reversed. Now, do these African leaders who are in government, some of them constitutional, and yet not delivering, and then there is now a need, because people are calling for it, that we need a change. And people are aware that the so-called constitutional change, which is now only possible by the money bags who take over government, fooling us but not delivering, and dancing to the tune of foreigners when our interests are not protected. How long are we going to continue this way? Now the question now is coming. Do we really need protection for these leaders? Some of us are saying partially yes. Because if they are not comfortable to do their job, they won't be able to do it. But what about if their comfort is our inconvenience? In other words, they do whatever they like by protecting the interests of foreigners and not our interests. That is where the problem is. Obviously, if the American government is going to be the government of the United States of America, voted by the people of America to protect their interests, and this government now has stationed military on our land to protect our government against us, technically this government will be working for the Americans. Now, what is the solution for it? This government needs protection. The way the citizens of the United States of America are voting for the president of the United States, that have been able to prove that when the people of the states, some of which are even bigger than Nigeria, like Texas, are voting for their president of the United Common States after voting for their governor. And this election now empower the president of America to be able to ward off and reverse any coup in any state of the United States of America. So anywhere you want to do coup, if you want to do it, it's in the United States, it's in the Washington government level, that is the federal government. The same thing can be with the African Union. In other words, instead of the so-called Americans protecting our leaders against us, if you go to the so-called Golden Jubilee house they are building in Ghana, you will know what is happening. It's very, very dangerous. What will be happening is that we will be voting for the president of the African Union Authority, now Dr. Champagne. What he will now be doing, he will now have the authority to be able to reverse coups in Africa and make sure that leaders voted into government will be there to serve the people, because he, the president of the African Union Authority, now the chairman of the African Union, will also be getting his mandate from the same people. They will deliver. In other words, we will now be protecting the leaders against unconstitutional change from the African Union by the mandate of the people, and the African Union too will be there to protect the people. So we will not end up with governments across Africa invited, called the AFRICOM, to be protecting our leaders in the interest of the president of the United States of America. This is simple. Our call, Action Group of Africa, for the people to vote for the president of the African Union Authority every 4 years is an unconditional future of our people. We say the government of the people will work for the people, and if we want the African Union to work for the people, then the people must vote for the president of the African Union. Once again, Kofi Ali, we don't have much time to waste. I'll be coming back to talk about, yes, the election of the African Union. So many people are not getting what we mean. Maybe we need to come up with another explanation, designing how the election will take place in a more convenient way, like I did with a friend today. Well, I've been talking to her, but for so many times she can't understand, because I thought she will understand that she is not stupid. When she's given the right, she'll make the right choice. But I discovered that when I now took time, pen and paper, and explained everything to her, who is doing what and how she will make the choice, she now understood that if I explain that way, people will understand. I'll come back to you. On this note, I say, your vote, Action Group of Africa, it's not about me, it's about us. Don't look at me, look at us and look at our future. Thank you.